This is Comic Books This Week. My name is Hannibal Tabu, head comics reviewer at bleedingcool.com. This is Dr. Stanford Carpenter at my side, noted comics anthropologist, and we are going to talk about comics that came out this week, I guess. Sure. Okay. So, you ready to rock, Stanford?
Yep.
I noted you had more on the DC side of the table, so you want to start there?
Yeah, I had a few more on the DC side of the table. I mean, this was a week.
Ooh,
Well, let's start towards the bottom.
okay.
Checkmate number 4.
I feel like it was a stalemate, but sure, okay. Why not?
I mean, this is got to be one of the most beautiful, slightly uninteresting books I've read. It is. I mean, the art is incredible. I mean, it's enough to get me. It's just as a book, it's not coming together for me.
Agreed.
And I think part of it is that there's things that are happening there that I get the sense are happening more in other books than in this book.
To a degree, I can see that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what to do with that, to be honest.
Well, what I can tell immediately is, first of all, that this is a book that's in love with dialogue. The dialogue is of paramount importance to the detriment of plot in many ways. The introduction of Lois Lane's secret assassin brother doesn't do anything because it doesn't have any resonance. It doesn't have any meaning in her life, in the life of her children, in the life of her friends. So it's not a thing.
Correct.
And moreover, the constant talking back and forth. Oh, what does this mean? What are you going to do? The quipping. If I was watching this on an hour-long show and this was about 10 minutes of that hour-long show, that'd be fine. But I'm not. People are expected to pay $4 a month for this. And frankly, it's not worth it. I don't think so.
I can see where you're coming from on that. I gotta say, it's just not coming together for me. It's a beautiful book. I in a weird way, it hasn't really sold me on the characters.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is supposed to be like the group of master of all master spies, and I'm not quite getting it.
Yeah. And
I'm not.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I respect Lois Lane, but here's the thing. I'm getting more respect for Lois Lane by what's happening in another book that I'll talk about later than I am in this book, and this book features her.
Foreshadowing.
They just haven't. I just feel like it's just Lois Lane is great because they tell me she's great.
Like Poe Dameron.
Right. I'm not seeing, I'm not just not feeling it. And I'm like, okay, Steve Trevor. It's like, okay, I mean, I actually think that Checkmate would work with a better lineup. Like, there are better characters in the DCU to fit the slots.
Here's my perspective on it. Okay, you've got Green Arrow, you've got Manhunter, you've got the Question. You've got some people who can do some investigation. You got some people who can do some action scenes. You got people who can do some stuff. But are they doing any of those things? No, they're talking. They're talking a lot. Talk.
Right.
Talk. So, I mean, if you'd told me 15 years ago that I would think Green Arrow could be a credible action hero, I wouldn't believe you. But Stephen Amell says, "Oh, I got you, dog." So I have seen and I do know how to do it. But if you're going to shoot him from the chest up only talking, that's not the way to do it. Moreover,
Right.
if they've got this Merlin versus Green Arrow matchup, which is a classic gag, and the worst we see is them pointing the arrows at each other and not really seeing the conflict playing out in a really dynamic visual way, that's a huge deficit. You're not using the tools here. Moreover, for a spy book, we're not discovering any information. We're not uncovering any secrets. We're not having any spectacular action scenes in ridiculous locales with outlandish costuming and none of that. If you're going to be a spy book, spy me. Be the spy that
Right.
loved me, not the spy that bored me. And, you know, I've read Queen and Country. I know how books can go about actual intelligence gathering, but this isn't even that. This is not.
Right.
I mean, it can be interesting no matter how you slice it. I just don't believe that the subject matter can overcome the desire for dialogue.
Right. I'm with you on that. And it just needs to there just needs to be more. I feel like this is a book that's sitting on laurels that it never earned in the first
Well,
place.
yeah, Checkmate does it does if like say for instance if you went back and read all the old Suicide Squad stuff and saw Checkmate, you'd be like, oh, Checkmate might be a thing. None of that is here. This is not the Checkmate
Right.
that built that. This is not any of that. They haven't even sorted out who's a pawn, who's a bishop, and who's a rook. They haven't even sorted out the basic things about what Checkmate does.
Right. And the thing is they're being billed as this organization when it's really just a group of people meeting in the basement.
Exactly.
But the same problem, I have the same issue with Leviathan, right?
Yeah.
They haven't really given me a reason to be concerned about Leviathan.
They got a country at
They're-
least.
Yeah, but they come across in the series as just these kind of cookie cutter, they're just cookie cutter minions.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm, but here's the thing, like a lot of the pieces, like the dialogue is actually pretty good, right?
Yeah.
It's beyond pretty good. The dialogue's great.
True.
The art is great. But
True.
somehow it just doesn't come together, and that's what I find to be a little vexing about this book. I just feel like I don't understand why it's not coming together better. I mean, I do think part of it is the lineup, quite frankly. I mean, these are not. I'm being told I should be afraid of these characters, and I'm not really feeling like there's anything to fear.
Yes, yes, there's absolutely. You're not worried about these characters moving across the board and taking your pieces. You're just not.
Right.
Yeah, the fights, like they had this fight scene between Manhunter and Guardian, and it's like the third super bootleg knockoff Guardian, and I was like, that's not a thing. There was this really cute. The scene with the blood was really cute, where they were talking and the reflection of the blood, but it was nothing happening. It was a static
Right.
thing. So yeah, would you recommend this book? Where, if you were going to ask by honorable mention, meh or no, where would you state the Checkmate is going to fall?
I'd have to say meh,
I would
because
agree.
this is issue 4 of 6.
Yeah. Oh God, there's only 6 of them.
Right. Yeah. So I'm kind of like, well, am I gonna, because if you're issue 4 or 6 and you're recommending someone get on, you're recommending that they go back and buy the other 3.
Yeah, we can't
So-
say that.
Yeah. So
This is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu, head comics reviewer at Bleeding Cool. What are we going to do next, Stanford?
how about Robin number 6?
I was wondering if you'd get to this with your dude in there. Sure, let's do that. After 5 issues, we're finally gonna fight.
Okay. Let's not cloud the issue with facts. I mean, what I thought was kind of interesting was they took a whole bunch of the fights and boiled them down into like a splash page with a whole bunch of panels with bone outlines.
Yeah.
A little bit busy, but I kind of appreciated the fact that they didn't try and stretch it out and make us watch every fight and waste all the pages.
Well, here's okay.
Oh, no, say it. I know
Okay.
what you're about to say, but I need to hear it.
From issue 1, they said Robin is going to go into a fight tournament with the best fighters in the world, and he was going to fight. I was like, all right, great, wonderful. I want to see that. I want to go to there. For 5 issues, he did not do that. He wasn't even on the island for 2 of those issues, first of all, where this tournament is happening. And now that we're actually at the tournament, we're not getting the fights we were promised. Because I've seen Matt Wagner do a Grendel versus Batman fight scene, which I think it had like 72 panels on 2 pages. And I literally went through each one watching to see, ooh, Hunter's going to do that. Ooh, and Batman's doing it. It was riveting. So I know it can be done. I know you can do it. I just don't believe that there was the will to accomplish it here. So this kind of fast-forward method of portraying the fights, I find it lackluster. I find it disappointing. I feel that, as you often say, Stanford, this book is not fulfilling the promise that it set forth. I was promised fighting. I'm not getting fighting.
I get it, but if you're not gonna follow through on the promise, don't take forever to do it.
Yes.
That's and what I appreciate about that 2 page spread is all none of these fights were very interesting. Most of them were not very interesting fights. What, the twins fight each other? Yay!
That could have been
I
hot.
mean, so I like that they didn't try and like make us sit through all of them. That was actually I'm gonna give them credit for good use of a fast forward. Um, you know, I feel like this particular episode was, or this particular issue, not a lot happened. You're right.
True.
Finally, people started fighting. And it's not only that not a lot happened, but the same thing happened in this issue that happened in all the other ones. Was there a couple of fights and then a whole bunch of talking, and I'm
Hmm.
not sure that the fights or the talking were all that important.
And if you're gonna talk, because I mean, don't get me wrong, Damian Wayne can be super entertaining when he's talking, Eh, but he wasn't talking. He was listening. It was a lot of exposition dumps. There's a lot of other characters that were could have truthfully been interchanged with each other talking, and it didn't matter. It didn't connect. There was if you're gonna talk that much, at least be interesting. Checkmate at least has some gags in there if they're gonna talk. You know.
You're right. You're right. I mean, you're totally right on that. Um, but I gotta say this is a weird week because the next book I'm gonna go to is usually one of the books I consider one of the top books,
Uh
and
huh.
I felt like it was kind of a dip in quality as far as the issue is concerned.
What would that be, Stanford?
Mr. Miracle, the Source of Freedom.
Okay. Okay. I have my reasons. What are yours?
I kind of wanted to hear you first.
All right. First of all, Oberon came in last issue with several buckets full of exposition dumping. Right. The same thing happens here. Lots and lots of exposition dumping, except this time it's Orion. And Orion's not an exposition dump kind of guy. That's not what I really look for him. I look for, like, again, spectacle. He's a big weapon of mass destruction style fighter. I want to see that. But no, he's a little Thor. He's like, "Hello, old friend," and I'm like, what is this? Did Simonson get to you? What are you doing, man? No, wait, no, I've read Simonson's Orion. It's much better than this. So I'm like, what? What happened? I was a little weirded out by Thor Orion, but yeah, I wasn't really sure what was happening there, and not sure I got it. But they at least I have some answers now. I have some understanding that this is a time jump thing. That there's I get what's going on in the story that was confusing me a little more and where different people are and where they're coming from. But yeah, this has been a long road to get here, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say the one thing that stuck out the most for me is the art. I really felt like the art was too busy. Too many
Yeah, okay.
panels with very thin very thin black borders on top, and it was like panel with lots of scratchy marks on top of panels with lots of scratchy marks. I had trouble figuring out what was going on, and I know that I get what they were trying to do as far as like as the energy of all these battles and stuff like that. But even a guy getting punched in the nose, sometimes it needs a lot of room to breathe.
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel that. I just felt like there was just like I was being overwhelmed visually, and then there's lots of talking on top of it.
Yeah.
And me, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of too much exposition, and I felt like there was a lot of redundant exposition. Like they were trying to like I guess they're using the talking as characterization, but it wasn't. It when you combine it with the busyness of the style and the busyness of the story, because fight stories are inherently really busy. I just needed something. I just needed something that to give me a chance to breathe and really take things in. This is a tough read, and it's kind of I won't lie. It was kind of disappointing, given what we've seen in some of the other issues.
True.
I still recommend this book. I recommend that and I'll recommend that people buy this book because It's issue 5 of 6, and you certainly should have read the first 4 issues. Those were amazing. They just Brandon just had a little bit of a slump on this one, and I still have faith that we're roaring towards an awesome conclusion.
Well, I'm willing to give it an honorable mention. I believe that this does have a lot of merit to it in what's going on with the character. The character himself, he just did not get the room to shine because we're so close to the end that there's so many points to get across. It's like when you're rushing to finish an assignment. And I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if this was supposed to be more issues than it is. We can't look behind the curtain and see what was happening in editorial there. We can only deal with the product that we have on our hand, and as such, this falls a little bit shy. I would definitely honorable mention it though.
Okay. Well, let's. I mean, my next book is and I can't believe I'm saying that this is one of my favorite books of the week.
Okay.
Superman, Son of Kal-El.
Really? Why is that?
You know, I really like the way that I like the way they're characterizing John Kent. I feel like they've written him in a way in which he's not the usual cliche son of a superhero type of character.
True.
I like that he gets along with his dad and genuinely likes his dad.
Yeah.
I like that his dad generally likes his son, but sometimes doesn't quite understand him. But hey, I get it. They're
Yeah.
I feel like they're just writing a really interesting father-son relationship. And it's nice to see a parent-child relationship that's not built around angst or misunderstanding, right? I mean, there's just something about this that's incredibly normal.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that.
But then even the areas where they step out, like what I think is great is in this one, we start to see the subtle differences between the way John as Superman behaves versus Superman. Like in this one, there's a group of protesters, and he joins the protesters, and he demands that the police arrest him. I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, now we're going to do this big holier than thou thing about like how he dared to go to jail, blah, 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 blah. But the following scene afterwards was just amazing, right? Because he's just sitting in jail. He's not trying to get out or anything. And his dad shows up. I'm going to read it.
Classic.
I just got to read this. It's like the dad's in shadows. The police are in shadows. He's just sitting there like whatever. He's not like upset about being in jail. He's just kind of relaxed. And he says, "Time to go, son." It's just like, and then he's like, "What about the others who got arrested? If I'm getting out because I have a famous father," he's like, "It's okay. They're being released. There's been quite a public outcry." And he said, "You made sure the whole world was paying attention," which I think is interesting because that's not what Clark Kent would have done.
No. No.
He
it's not.
he would not have said, "I'm going to jail," right? But I like the conversation afterwards. Like John is saying to Clark, he's like, "I did hard time, Dad." I was like, oh, okay. and then Clark's like, "You were there for 45 minutes," and then he responds, 45
minutes
minutes
of
of
hard
hard
time.
time. Like that was really interesting,
Yeah,
right?
it was.
Like that was like a great. At least I thought it was a great father-son moment. And then he has a couple other references about like hard time. I did hard time, like it's some sort of accomplishment, right? But it's they get the humor, and they've made me see him as a different Superman.
Yes. Yes.
And
That's fair.
that's actually what I want to read. I mean, I've lived long enough to read a lot of Superman stories. So if you're going to give me a new Superman, make him a new Superman, but don't make it, "Oh, this is the new dark Superman,"
No.
or "No, this is the new." It's like, no, I like that the differences are significant, but a lot of them are subtle. I like the whole thing of the way they show Clark engaging John's friends. I
Love
think that's
that.
really interesting. I mean, it's just it's just really good, simple writing. And then when John brings a friend home, the friend is like, is really not super impressed by Superman,
He's all
but
right.
he can't get himself to talk to Lois Lane because she's his idol.
She's amazing.
And 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 that's what I was saying earlier about Checkmate, right? Checkmate tells me that Lois Lane is awesome. This shows me that Lois Lane is awesome
Yes.
by showing me how it is that this boy reacts to Lois Lane in relationship to Superman.
Love it.
That's it, and Lois Lane has a lot less pages in this. Lois Lane shows up for what, 3 pages,
Maybe.
and I'm like, okay, it just. I am really enjoying this book, and I'm enjoying it because of just simple characterization. Just, just, you know, it went. It's actually getting where it needs to go with really solid meat and potato storytelling, as opposed to trying to shock me, as opposed to trying to overwhelm me with like pages and pages of dialogue. Right. That's the other thing that I think is really good about this book is, it's a little stingier with the dialogue than a lot of the other books that came out this week, and
True.
it's refreshing.
I won't deny that. That's true. I agree with you about a lot of those things. Those were a lot of engaging things. However, there's a character named Faultline here. And Faultline is a black woman whose body has hyperdensity, as though she were chained at a quantum level to a neutron star. And she inadvertently causes the collapse of a building with 400 and some odd people in it. We find out the reason why, and that was a big problem for me. This black woman being used as a prop, essentially, as a weapon, especially by a white man, I found enormously insulting and very problematic. That was hard for me to swallow because I was enjoying the John Kent stuff, even though the march hand in hand with the protesters thing. I saw Kara Zor-El do that on the Supergirl show. I've seen that. It's a good gag, but it's not new gag to me. So I like a lot of what I was able to see here, and I like, as you said, the relationship between Clark and John is absolutely pitch perfect. The friend, who I still suspect is a supervillain in hiding, I like a lot as well. The Lois stuff was great. Even the work or the idea of the ending, I was like, oh, okay, that's a way to go. Let's do that. But this central using a black woman as a prop, I found, frankly, a little insulting, a little tiring, because you don't have to use anybody as a prop. I don't know anything about this character other than they are a prop. They are a tool for the goals of somebody else. This sister got maybe 3 lines, maybe 2, and had no agency or control over her own destiny in any regard. And I'm not here for it, frankly. So that was a thing that would stop me from recommending this as a buy and take it down to an honorable mention. I can appreciate the qualities that I liked, but I can't necessarily stand for them.
Well, and you know what? I do agree with you on the cringe aspect of that. You know, I I'm not I can't make excuses for it.
Yeah.
And I do feel kind of like you do in that. I mean, we pretty much said it. Like we agree that this book has, I mean, the overall writing I feel like is pitch perfect, right? But but you're right. Those character moments. I'm kind of in this mode of like, I found myself to be a little annoyed. I thought it was a little itchy to have that in there. I'm curious to see if they're going to really allow this character to become something, or if she's going to stay a tool. She was a very small part, but it's clear that she's going to be a part of the next issue by what happens in the last panel.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to reserve judgment on that part of the storyline.
I'm willing to reserve judgment on stuff I haven't paid for. The stuff that's for sale now, I have to, and that's why this is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu. It is creeping up on the 30-minute mark. What is next, Stanford?
Okay. I don't count this as a DC book, even though it has DC on the front cover. Icon and Rocket.
Icon and Rocket. Yes, sir. Number
What do you
3.
think?
I was happy with a lot of things. That first of all, Icon previously had a very limited scope of action, whereas this Icon is like, no, I'm doing this big. I'm doing this in a very big way that you are going to see and you are going to notice. And I was like, oh, okay, this is apparently, as I said last month, not your father's Icon. I like that. That's great. He recognizes the chess match that he's in with other powers and some of the things that they'll bring to bear. He's put some measures in place to address that, which I believe is the lawyer character, Ziamata. We got another taste of her, but not an explanation necessarily. I liked a lot of the smart things happening here, both in the conversations in the Oval Office and the conversations with Rocket, explaining things happening. What I was concerned with was that, like Man of Steel, I essentially got the same conversation twice about how certain elements of the world economy are funded by certain things, and if you upset one thing, it screws with another thing. I got it the first time they explained it. I don't need, like I didn't need OnStar Jor-El to tell me the entire story again after I got at the start of Man of Steel. So that was like, okay, maybe you think people are dumb. Maybe you think they didn't hear you the first time. But I heard you, and I can also turn the pages back to read it again. So that was a little bit of a concern. But everything else, I really enjoyed the smartness of the book. I would recommend this book as a buy, even though I would appreciate if they trusted the audience a little bit more. I get, I know what's on Fox News. I get the idea that they have concerns, but I would appreciate if they would trust the audience a little more.
Okay, I love the book. I'm going to come back to the same thing I harp on a lot of. Mm-hmm. This book needed a little more editing because there was a lot more exposition dumping than there needed to be. And it's not that what was said wasn't important. I mean, the recitation on sort of political economy and racism was great. But even as I was reading, I was thinking, they could have cut this line, and just made it move a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I like how they did their version of what happened to Superman in this universe.
Nice. I was like, snap.
What I loved about it is that, like, we think of it as, Icon is the Black Superman. No, they are basically saying in this, he's not the Black Superman because Clark Kent did come to Earth. It's just, the government figured it out and they took care of that. I thought that was interesting.
That's amazing.
I really like that. I like what they're doing with Icon's antagonist of it's pretty clear like he's the person who destroyed the ship that he was on, right?
Yeah, he's a Martian Manhunter type. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and I love that he is essentially. I mean, they've said he's Martian Manhunter without saying he's Martian Manhunter, and he's got all the powers. And what I think is interesting about that is if you're going to have characters that serve as analogs for other characters that we're used to seeing, setting up a storyline around was essentially Superman versus Martian Manhunter is a really cool ass thing to do.
True.
I mean, and it's because Superman is stronger, but like Superman don't got no telepathy.
And we don't know this guy has that. We don't know that.
They made a reference to that, I thought.
Oh, they did? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. It was buried in the exposition. I thought that was just really cool. One thing I do like is that they didn't go back to like spending a lot of time showing how it is that Icon was still alive after we saw him getting stabbed in the chest. I liked that he was like, oh yeah, I was just in a coma. I woke up eventually, right? But it's one of those things where I didn't necessarily need to see that. Like, I don't know if I would have wanted to have a whole issue explaining that, right? Like, sometimes some stories, as interesting as they may be, don't serve the overall story.
Yep.
And I like the relationship between Icon and Rocket.
Love it.
And I like the way that she takes these jabs at him. That she's like, like he's like, oh, you millennial, and she's like, oh, You sort of Uncle Tom.
She even dropped a little Nipsey Hussle reference on him. I was like, oh, okay, all right,
Oh,
come through, come through.
Yup. You know, we don't know what's going on with ZMR, but clearly there's more to her than meets the eye by that whole scene of her, I don't know, running up the side of a wall.
I think she's Iron Butterfly. That's my guess.
Yeah, I'm thinking so too. But and that could be really cool. I mean, I like the idea of them. I like the idea of them finding a way to bring in Shadow Cabinet because that is my favorite Milestone book,
Love it.
bar none. And let me say something else. The cover of this was beautiful.
Oh, so beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, just beautiful. Yeah, I mean, give me a little more room to breathe as far as the as far as like all the text, and this is a perfect book.
Yeah.
But even in its imperfection, is at the top of my buy pile.
That would be my recommendation as well. This is absolutely a purchase book. It has layers, and even with the double duty of the same discussion, which I get it, it's an important discussion. I understand, Reggie. I understand. But even there, I cannot say that this is not a book worth having, worth buying, worth putting your money in.
Right. Yep.
So what's
So,
next? Oh,
wow.
comic
Why
books this week.
don't? Well, I guess we're gonna go to the Marvel side of things.
I guess we are.
You know, I'm gonna let's do Winter Guard #2.
Okay. I appreciate Winter Guard because Winter Guard is giving me a look at a different place than I normally see, ideas that I don't normally expect, and the metaphor that it started with, the Dark Star metaphor, I thought was really pretty. I thought that was a really pretty metaphor, both visually and verbally, that I really appreciate. I was like, oh wow, that's dope. And the way that tied together later on with what was happening with the team, I was like, oh, I see what you did there. That's really clever. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that quite a bit. What I don't enjoy is the fact that I don't really get these characters. I get Russian Thor is Russian Thor, but I don't know why I should care. I get that, creepy Dark Force God is creepy Dark Force God, but again, don't care. I want more of these characters. The plot is driving very strong. The metaphor is very strong. There's a lot of elements that are very strong, but I'm not connecting with these characters. The passion that they feel for Russia, I don't feel, and I don't know
Right.
why they feel, and I want to.
I can see you. I definitely feel you on that. I think that you know my my concern about this book is that I feel like the Winter Guard is feeling almost like a Dark Avengers,
Yes,
and
accurate,
and I don't like that.
and not dark like they were black, like the crew, but dark like
Right?
Osborn's Dark of it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Uh huh.
I would like to see them make Winter Guard a thing unto their own.
Yeah.
And I feel like being a dark version kind of diminishes. It does kind of diminish what's going on there.
Well, let me ask you this. Darkstar made this distinction in the book. The character, she herself said, people should see that the Winter Guard are here to help. But the question is, are the Winter Guard heroes or are they agents of policy? Because there's not always room to be both.
Right. And I get that. I just one of the things I think is I don't think this book is entirely uninteresting, and that's the thing, right? I feel like they've got some really interesting beats there, and there is something that I'm attracted to. There's that one character, the dark character, Purin.
Yes.
Yeah, like his whole thing where like he literally joins with people's shadows and learns their secrets. That's he's kind of an interesting character,
Oh yeah, he's got
right?
some power. Yeah.
But he gets lost in the Dark Avengers metaphor. And that's part of where my concern is. You know, what am I going to say that this is? I wish there was like a designation between honorable mention and meh, right? I'm
You can say
like,
low honorable mention or high meh. I say that sometimes.
I'll give a low honorable mention to this one because I feel like if this is your kind of book, you're going to like it,
Yeah,
right? But if it's not your kind of book, maybe you need to divert those resources elsewhere.
that's fair. Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean, I'm really having trouble just figuring out what I feel about this book, and part of it is also in the writing, is that they haven't written it in a way that's really compelling. I think they probably have a few too many characters that they're trying to spotlight. Like I said, I want to know more about Purin. I want to know more about their Thor analog.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because and I think it's because we don't know enough about them. It's just like, oh yeah, that's Russian Thor,
Yeah. Well,
right?
somebody in the book confused is like, is that Thor?
Yeah.
I, which I thought was funny.
When it's
This,
so confusing, you feel compelled to mention it in the plot.
I'm just saying, he's big. He's got a hammer. He's controlling lightning. You know, it is what it is. So, I would give this a solid honorable mention. I appreciate Ryan Katie's because he's got a definite passion for this crew, and I think he was saddled with the idea of following the movie in Yelena and Red Guardian being chased by the forces of the state. I think that was a mandate from editorial, and he's following that admirably enough. But Yelena in the movie is hilarious, and this Yelena is not. Red Guardian in
Right.
the movie is hilarious, and this Red Guardian is not. So, you know, spice it up a little on the character side. Maybe I might be able to get engaged.
Right. I'm with you on that. I like I said, I am gonna buy the next issue, and I'm gonna try, just to kind of see what's there. I am curious, but I just hope that we can. I hope that I really hope that they can find some way to let them be their own team. Show me why they matter to Russia.
Indeed. Well, we're at the 40-minute mark. This is Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu. We got about 20 minutes left. What's next?
Well, we're gonna do I figure we do the X books back to back.
Back to back.
Yeah. So let's hit Thor 17.
Ooh, okay. Thor 17. I'm yelling at you. No, I'm yelling at you. No, I'm yelling at you. No, I'm yelling at you. Yeah, baby, baby, baby. And then fighting. Okay. I guess.
Yeah, but don't forget that I'm yelling at you. Mommy and Daddy are fighting.
Thor is the king of Asgard, man. I mean, come on.
But you know what? I'm gonna be honest. It was kind of fun watching it.
I guess.
Like, I mean, what appealed to me about this book was the absurdity of it all, right? Thor's big sister coming in saying, if you can't be a better king, I'm taking your shit over, right?
Which actually reminds me of something. Thor's got two other brothers too, Balder and Tyr, in the comics at least. They don't exist in the same way in the cinematic universe. I know Tyr's dead, but what's Balder doing? What's Balder's gag?
I, I don't know, but that's always been my issue with the Asgardians in Marvel Comics, right? Is that if you look at Norse mythology, the central character is not Thor. The central character is Balder.
Yeah.
In fact, the sun literally rises and sets on Balder.
I mean,
The
he's
world is
beautiful.
born and dies on Balder, right? I mean, that's that. I mean, so I always find it really weird that they do so little with Balder.
He's boring.
They want nothing to do with Balder in the
Well,
Marvel
he's boring.
universe. He's boring because they write him as boring. I just feel like he's the character that they should be trying to figure out how to, you know, how to make exciting.
I think, given Marvel's history, that it's easier to take the flawed, goofy son, or as I called him from the wonderful What If episode, Party Thor. It's much easier to take him and with his flaws and with his ups and with his downs, make him interesting than the literally almost always perfect Balder, who doesn't really have any flaws and doesn't really have any, He's gonna be Balder, and that's what he is, and that's what you're getting. It's more like he's like Guy Sensei on Naruto. So it's like this is
Right.
what you're getting. This is the guy.
Yeah, but I still feel like a good writer could come in and do a really interesting Baldar story,
Yeah,
or maybe but it'd be really hard because really Thor is written as Baldar. It's Thor is Norse mythology actually. In the mythology, Baldar is written a lot more like Thor is, and Thor is just this like Thor in the fat suit is really it is actually closer to Thor in mythology.
true.
He's the brother who gets his hands dirty. He's kind of hot-headed. He's
He
the god of
drinks.
thunder, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's that's his shtick, right? I don't know. I think that I think it's a decent. I think that this was a decent book. I thought it was interesting, but like I said, it's hard because this is where we start to see something that's so different from Norse mythology that it's just not. It just doesn't feel connected anymore to me.
there's a lot of things. I mean, even though as far back as Kirby, there's a lot of things very different from Norse mythology. A
Yep.
lot. So I mean, I'm not. I stopped getting hung up on that in the '70s. For me, I'm more like where we are now. Thor's the king of Asgard. Thor's supposed to have the Odin power. Thor's supposed to this. Thor's supposed to that, and he's not. He's not that dude. Because we know,
Right.
Donny Cates has already written, we know he turns into King Thor. We know that. We know he will be and as he says here, he knows he'll be the last king of Asgard. But he also knows that King Thor had the hammer. So what's he all worked up on his personal issues for? Why are you whining? Why are you, get it together. Get it together, man.
Right.
Be the king.
Yeah, I mean but that's essentially what what Angela's there to say, right?
Yeah.
She's like, do better, or I'm taking this over.
Yeah.
But I did find that to be somewhat entertaining. Though I also liked seeing I also thought it was hilarious seeing his mother ride to defeat the beast minions on literally a giant cat.
With its Catling guns. That was my favorite part.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm entertained by that. I like that. That's fun.
Yeah. So I got my cheap thrills. But yeah, I feel like something that's also interesting about this book is he does capture certain little things. Like remember in the first of this arc, in the first one where he talked about why he was so why he's always so happy to see his friends,
Yeah, that
right?
was great. And
You know,
we
and
saw
it's-
a hint of that.
Right. And I feel like he captures those little things in the dialogue. So like in this instance, it was like, yeah, mommy and daddy are fighting, right? But they actually made it, but it was still kind of interesting to watch, right? Like this whole acknowledgement that Freya gets that Odin's a manho, and
Himbo.
yep. Or as we call them, he's a garden weasel.
I
What's a
love
garden weasel? A high-tech hoe.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I could math this because I'm going to forget a lot of this stuff happened, but there are like moments that I connected with me that were not as strong as the whole. So,
right. I can see that. So yeah. I mean, it as far as Thor as like a Thor book, it's not. It's I'm entertained. I'll give it a I don't know. I'm gonna get this a low honorable mention.
that's fair.
I think if this is your thing, this is definitely gonna be your thing. But if it's not, you're like, okay, why am I here?
I can dig that. Cool, cool. We have about a little over 10 minutes, or it's time to head to Krakoa or Araco or somewhere.
Yeah, we got S.W.O.R.D and we got Inferno.
All right. Are we going to Krakoa first or Araco?
I say we go to Araco first. It begins with A. It's up there in the alphabet. Respect the
It's
English
got
language.
the Queen of Soul.
Yep.
You see, they got a double entendre there going intentionally? I hope.
Yeah. I see where you're going, but I gotta say this was actually my most disappointing S.W.O.R.D book, and I've said mostly good things about S.W.O.R.D.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think the Araco mutants are made out to be a lot more than they are. like again with Poe Dameron, we're told how impressive they are without really seeing it. And when we get this guy's power, it was gross. I did not want to see that. I'm not a fan. Especially since, for all that, the conclusion still played out the way it did. So I was like,
Right.
okay, I guess. The idea that the culture of Morocco has this, I guess, parallel of the Quiet Council, but is, oh, you get your seat by murdering somebody. That's that's not government. That's not. You're not going to get anywhere that way, and which is why, and Morocco, for all their hardcore attitude, were stuck on the freaking other world in the background forever. That nobody even knew they were there or cared. That's not nobody that you want to stand up
I
and
have
emulate.
to I have to correct you.
Hmm.
You use the word cared. I think that's improper use of the English language.
How
It should
so?
end with an S. Cares. Present tense. Nobody
Ooh,
cares.
ooh.
Nobody cares.
Well, you're
They
not
have
wrong.
not given me a reason to care in the present, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, she had more, and you know what else? Quite frankly, this issue was just a rehash of the issue of X-Men in the '80s when Storm ends up with the Morlocks and she has to take out Callisto to be in charge.
Totally right. Totally right. It had such
I,
a
it
great opening, but yeah, you're totally right.
it was the same story, except for Callisto was a more formidable opponent.
And better looking.
Yes. And that was what got me about this. I was like, okay, yeah, because not a lot, and actually, not a lot happened in this. In this,
Nope.
she flew overhead. And she got into and she wiped out somebody who was threatening her position in one panel with a snowstorm. And then she did the same thing to this other guy that's supposed to be the most feared creature around. You're right. You know.
I'm just saying, if you're gonna roll in and take somebody out with a snowstorm, that's the time when you need a black rider. Because you know what she would have said? You got to chill. You need to hit some EPMD there. You need that. But no, no, they're not ready for that conversation.
They definitely needed something, and I actually, you know what? I didn't really feel like Storm was well written in this,
Yeah.
and in general, I think that with all the Krakoa stuff, like since the X-Men have been on the island, Storm has not been an interesting character. They have not figured out how to write Storm in a way that works in that universe and still works with her character.
You know who did? That last Annihilation Wakanda book a few weeks ago by Evan Narcisse. He wrote her. And he
Right.
brought her in a real fly, storm, mutant, Krakoa specific way. And I was like, oh, that's how you do this. I like that.
Right. And what do we know about Evan Narcisse? Oh yeah, Black Writer.
Yeah, he is.
Um, you know,
Super
and,
talented.
and what else happened here? Oh, yeah. It wasn't an X book.
I
Like,
mean, you're not wrong.
she gets more interesting when you take her. There's something, basically, a lot of this. What's interesting or what's notable about the whole decision to go to the island and reimagine the world around the X-Men like this is it really does show the extent to which certain characters, there's just certain characters that we're used to doing a lot with that don't fit within this world.
Yeah.
And so it's weird, like being like, okay, what's going on with this guy? Well, you know what I mean? It's jarring. It's like a Legion story where there's no a Legion of superheroes where there's no room for Cosmic Boy and Ultra Boy. It just doesn't work. Because it's like they're the heart of the team, but there's no room for the heart of the team.
I've seen a couple of Lone Wolf stories I enjoyed, and a couple of, Lightning Lad and Lightning Lass specific story. There was no
Oh,
Cosmic Boy, there was no Ultra Boy. I can't
no,
remember.
but I'm not talking about a single story. I'm
Oh,
talking
whoa, okay, yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
I'm talking about like what they've reimagined the world around the X-Men. And the world that they reimagined around the X-Men does not fit with some of the main characters of the
I
X-Men.
see what you mean. That's fair. That's totally
And
fair.
we need to talk, and we need to have a serious talk when we get to the Inferno about what this world has done for Magneto and what it's done for Professor X.
Well, let's okay. Well, what's your rating on Sword? Because mine is going to be low honorable mention.
I'm dropping down to meh.
That's fair. Totally fair. So let's dig into Inferno. What do we got?
Well, now we're finally getting into Moira McTaggart, and we're finally getting
In a while.
into the whole thing with we're getting into why she doesn't want Destiny to be around, and what it comes down to is Destiny kicked her ass really bad and said, "I'm gonna come back and kick your ass," and she's scared. Am I wrong?
Shook. You are not wrong.
I mean, so it's not really about like saving the mutant race. It's just Moira got a right proper ass whooping, and she ain't getting up after that. She's still hiding. She's still shaking. Um, but what I think is interesting out of all this is I do like them getting back to looking at this through Moira's perspective and realizing that it's not just about realizing the implication of Moira having lived different lives, because she's not always been a friend. It's established pretty upfront. She's not always been a friend to mutants. So now it's like, oh, Moira might not be one of the good guys. And I
Any of us really one of the good guys? I mean,
I am, but you
okay.
can have
Well, have fun.
questions. No, but I mean, like she's like, Destiny, and I like how Destiny is like. It's not just that Destiny can see the future; it's that Destiny can perceive what's happened with her other incarnations. So that's the other thing that's kind of interesting. Moira is afraid of a character that actually has her number, a character that she doesn't have an advantage of over. And I think that's kind of interesting. It's like Superman saying, "Let's execute anyone who has kryptonite." Right? It's like no, you're not making the world safer. You're making yourself safer. But the problem here is just you got your butt whooped. But the implications of all that and seeing her interact with Professor X and Magneto, I think that this whole Krakoa storyline has been incredibly amazing for Magneto. I think that it builds in an inherent sort of redemption arc for him. I mean, I think that Magneto becomes an interesting character in this, and Professor Xavier becomes an ass.
A total one. But yeah, that's actually been true all along.
Well, but there was always he really comes across in this as a conniving, backbiting. I would be a villain if not for the fact I have so much power in this world.
He's been fielding child soldiers since the '60s. I'm just gonna say it. So with that in mind, what you said about Magneto was interesting because literally this month Magneto is also on trial for murder, and literally this month Chuck was digging around in his head, and literally this month,
Yeah.
So I'm like, I get Maggie's, mutants overall or whatever, yada yada yada, but that's very forgiving in a very short amount of time for me, and it's discordant because I know that the X books are all under one editor, Jordan White. So it's not like he didn't know that these were all shipping at the same time.
Right.
And that's confusing to me. So watching that happen is very, very discordant for me with this X books. And Inferno, while I appreciate the idea of trying to make Orcus into a real threat, especially including Henry Peter Gyrick, who's the perennial enemy of anybody with powers, I get that, but it's not a big thing yet, especially because they keep sending the same assault at Orcus' central thing, and they never power up, whereas this is the same mutant race that redirected a bullet the size of a planet fired at the planet. I'm like, level up. If you're not able to do it this way, do it harder. Do it till you're satisfied. Whatever it is, come up with something. That's my look at it. So.
Well, that's true, but one thing I think is interesting is how, and I can't remember which X book it was in, where Orcus is like, They keep no. Is it Inferno? The orchestra's like they keep coming at us the same way,
Yeah,
but
it's
and we
Inferno.
keep and they keep dying and they're not learning. And I like how they're backing into figuring out the whole resurrection thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how we're starting to see that like this resurrection thing isn't quite all it's cracked up to be, right?
Yeah.
Like it really it creates the problem of certain things you're unable to evolve or learn from
Yeah.
because you're just sending the same people back with no memory of what happened before. So they just keep making the same mistake over and over again.
Now that you said that, where are they getting all the extra adamantium for Wolverine? I wonder.
That was my question. I actually had that question when I saw his skeleton floating in the vat. I'm like,
Huh.
he's got to be like the most expensive one to resurrect, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we got about 30 seconds left. How would you rate Inferno?
You know, I'll give it an honorable mention.
I will have to go a little lower than that with meh. I can't. I will not remember this next month when Inferno 2 comes back. I will have to look it up.
Well, I'm giving it an honorable mention just because I think it's worth buying to see where it goes.
I have Wikipedia for that. This has been Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Tabu, the head comics reviewer at Bleeding Cool. Thank you so much for listening. This will be on YouTube as soon as I can get around to it. We appreciate you. We look forward to talking to you again. Please wear your masks. Please be safe. Stanford, any last words?
Well, buy Icon Rocket. That's my last words.
Agreed. All right. Thanks so much. See you all next week. Bye, everybody. Bye, Dr. Nick.
Bye bye.